I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hello everyone, welcome to the Lethal Venom Podcast, the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth with no lies told. Today, I want y'all to think of something. Imagine releasing decades of stored emotions and feeling truly at peace in your own body. That's exactly what my guest has done. Miss Ann Hince has used awareness to shift her skull bones, grow close to an inch in her 50s, and has transformed her life from the inside out. She teaches listeners how to connect with their inner truth, release tension, and create lasting inner peace. She is here to tell me her story and share her life story and how she has turned into the person she is today. So, Anne, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I can't wait to hear this really, really inspiring story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
So, kind of just give a brief synopsis about your life and kind of what growing up in childhood was like for you.
Okay, great. Well, there's two kind of parts to the story. There's the before my 40s when I realized I had to change, and then there's after. So those early years, I had lots of traumas, lots of different traumas. Starting out from birth, I was actually born with my right foot up against my right shin, and that had to be released. And I think that was resulted in scoliosis. So I've had scoliosis my whole life. And then at 6 weeks old, I was handed over for adoption. And the family that adopted me had just had a trauma because they had a 2-year-old boy that was adopted. And then they adopted another little girl. And that birth mother changed her mind. So they had to hand that baby back to that birth mother. And then I was the replacement in the family for that loss. So kind of that was the beginning. My mother didn't really connect with me because I don't think you can, because you're kind of expecting the same thing to happen again. So that was the early years. And we moved around the world a lot. My dad worked for a telecommunications company. So we moved to Barbados when I was 6 months old, then to Sierra Leone when I was 3 or 4. And while in Sierra Leone, we had a house fire. And I was the one who woke up and saw the flames coming through my bedroom wall. So that was quite a trauma as well. And then after that, we moved to Hong Kong. And while I was in Hong Kong, I was sent to boarding school in England, which is a long way from Hong Kong. And I was sent to a boys' boarding school. So I was teased mercilessly because I was the only girl boarder for that first year. And I was just teased mercilessly by these boys in the age range of 9 through 13. So that was not a good time. And after that, we moved to Bahrain. And at the same time I moved to a different boarding school, which was an all-girls boarding school. And that was during my teenage years. And during those years, both my parents became alcoholics. So life at home was just hell. You just couldn't trust anything they'd say because they'd have forgotten it by the next day. And my dad was definitely a narcissist. Everything he said was had to be the case, right? So I actually shut down. I stopped saying my opinions on anything because they were never right unless I agreed with him. So I actually kind of held my voice back during that time frame. And then when I was 19, I woke up one morning and found my mother dead on the bathroom floor. So that was kind of the big trauma on top of all the other little traumas. And that kind of, obviously, it changed my life. I held it all in because that's what I'd been trained to do, and most of us are, right? We're taught to keep our emotions inside, and I was very good at that. And I did that. I did that for decades. So after she died, I graduated from college at 21. I moved out to the States, got married, had kids. Life continued, but I didn't realize that all of that past was still living inside of me. And I had complex PTSD from that alcoholism and my parents. And my mind was just so busy and so afraid all the time that I got to the point in my early 40s that I knew I had to do something about it. I had to change. I could not go on the way I was. So that was the first years.
Well, to think that all that's really happened to you, I feel for you, and I can't imagine what as a child and going into it as an early adult, how that could have affected you. Um, did they have a cause of death of what happened to your mother? Was it kind of an unexpected death?
Only somewhat. She had throat and lung cancer from smoking and drinking, and she had tumors in her throat, and one of the tumors burst. She coughed so much, just in the night. I think she just coughed and it burst. So yes, sudden, but was kind of expected at some point.
So then, after you had moved to the States, you kind of had mentioned that after you had turned 40, there was kind of another big shift in your life. Share with me a little bit about what happened, particularly in your 50s.
Okay, well, it was a whole progression, but the thing that started it was a business altercation with a couple of other mothers at my boys' school. And these women were not like me. I was this timid, scared mother on the inside. And these women were very self-confident, authority type women at the school. There were some people were afraid of them. One of them was from New York and said exactly what she felt all the time. And they told me I'd done something wrong. And I could not stop my mind spinning. Just for 3 days, it went over and over, all those different permutations, what I'd said, what they said, what I did, what I could have done differently. I just could not stop it spinning. And that was when I realized two things. First of all, this wasn't normal. I didn't know anyone else who would have reacted so intensely to something that really wasn't a big deal. And I realized it felt a little bit like how I would react when my dad would tell me I'd done something wrong as a child. So that made me realize, okay, well, maybe my childhood is still affecting me at this point. So that's when I realized I just have to change. I just couldn't go on the way I was going on. And I'd seen, all these other spiritual books and these spiritual teachers, they talk about, that you create your own reality and that you can change your own life. And I had been trying to do that for a long time, but nothing had shifted. So I was just determined. It's like, I've got to change, but I didn't know how at that point. But it was in that time frame I went to a doctor's appointment. Now, he happened to be a holistic physician, so he had more tools in his toolbox than most doctors do. And I can't remember why I went to him, but it was nothing to do with mental health. It was, I think, something physical, but I don't remember. But he happened to realize that I was stressed. So he asked me on a scale of 0 through 10 what my stress level was. And I said it was an 8. And then he asked me why. And that's when I realized, oh, it was finding my mother dead on the bathroom floor when I was 19, because the tears from that event were still just under the surface, like 2 decades later, because I hadn't dealt with it. So he happened to know this technique that's called EFT, which is short for emotional freedom technique. It's also called tapping, because we're tapping on our body as we're talking something through. So He tapped with me for about 15 minutes, which I know is a long time for a doctor's appointment. Most people don't get that long, but he was a holistic physician. So he tapped with me about my mother's death. And I told the story and I allowed the tears to flow. And I realized after that appointment that we hold those memories and those emotions physically in our body. And then I realized, well, we can let them go. And I hadn't known that before. I'd never experienced it before. And I think you had kind of a similar experience when you said the name of your high school friends out loud, right? You said you felt some relief from doing that. Well, I was telling the story of her death out loud and tapping at the same time. And the tapping was releasing the energy stored in the nervous system around that memory. So I was able at that point to tell the story of her death without the tears anymore because I had let them go. So that was the first shift that I thought, okay, I wonder if this tool is any good, right? It worked this one time with this doctor. So I went home and I thought, well, let me try it out because I had an engineering background. I like to know things work before I spend time or waste time on them. And at the time, EFT was fairly new. The person who developed it, called Gary Craig, had put everything for free on the internet. So you could go download the workbook that he had that taught you how to do it. So I learned everything I could about it. And then I wanted to try it out. So at the time, I had a 17-year-old cat at home and his kidneys were starting to fail. So we were told we had to give him a daily saline shot, an injection of saline solution. And I hated needles. I think most people do, but I'd had so many from living around the world. I was just petrified of it. And the first time I gave him a shot, my hand was shaking so bad. I knew I couldn't do it each day. I just wasn't going to be able to do it. So I thought, let me try out this technique. So I did. So I tapped about it. I tapped on every aspect of this event. So I tapped about my hand shaking. I tapped about my fear of hurting my cat. And this is the key, I tapped about all the memories from all the injections I had had over the years. And the next day, when I gave him that shot, the needle slid right in. All that fear, all that shaking that had been in my hand the day before had totally disappeared. It was no longer a part of me. So that's when I thought, okay, I'm going to use this technique and I'm going to work through everything because I want to find that level of peace inside of me about everything I do. So that was the first step.
And I think, to me, the most interesting thing about this whole story is that you kind of had like a huge shift internally too. You had talked about how some of your posture had changed. You were able to some of the bones in your skull actually shifted. So tell me a little bit more about that and kind of how you kind of learned that you had the inside of your body had really changed.
Right. So those physical changes happened like steps down the road. First, I had to work through all my traumas. So it's kind of like a layer by layer approach. So I started working on my traumas. I wrote down everything from my childhood, all the big traumas, the little traumas, the humiliations, the embarrassments, the resentments, all of those events I wrote down and I worked through one each day by tapping, by using EFT. So I would tell the story and tap until the emotion had released. And as I did that, my depth of awareness deepened. So I became aware of my emotions that I hadn't been aware of before, that'd been hidden. So I had to do that work. Then when I was aware of my emotions, I could actually feel my feelings. I know you had a guest that talked about that previously. She talked about how important it was or how beneficial it was to actually feel your feelings, to sit in the emotions. I couldn't have done that before, but at this point I could do that. So I would start feeling my feelings as they arose. And then at night I would lay on the sofa and I'd bring things to mind that had been stuck inside of me, like collective traumas, like 9/11, right? We all had our own personal experience of that event. Well, you might not have been born at that point. But those of us who were around, did have her own experience. So I would bring those memories to mind and just feel all those emotions that I had suppressed before. And eventually it got to the place where I could put my awareness inside my body after the sensations had released, the tension had released. I'd never heard of that before. I didn't know what I was doing. Now I know it was the beginning of an opening of the third eye, the inner eye, right, to see inside the body. So then I realized I could find tension inside my body. I could sense it. I could feel it. So I would find the tension. So I would focus somewhere in my body where there was tension, and I would focus on it and allow it to release. So feeling the feelings, but now I'm deeper, I'm feeling the tension and just sitting in it and letting it release. And over time, I was able to put my awareness inside my head and became aware of pain and tension that had been in there since I was born with my foot up against my shin. That caused tension all the way through my body, up the right side of my neck and into my left cheek. But it had been subconscious. So we keep so much subconscious, we just don't realize it's there until we start to unwind and unpack it. So when I became aware of that tension, I would just focus on it, just accept it, allow it to be there, let it release. And over time, it got to the place where I could actually hear and feel adhesions in the connective tissue release, which sounded like old fabric ripping and felt like old fabric ripping. And I just kept doing that over and over. And it got to the place where I could actually feel my skull bones relax. Now, I hadn't known they weren't relaxed before because it was subconscious. But to feel them relax was pretty wild. And eventually I had some x-rays taken, just orthodontic x-rays. I mean, I wasn't looking for any changes, but I realized changes had happened. So then I looked back at old x-rays and I could see that my skull bones had shifted into more alignment. My neck has released in ways that I didn't even know were possible before. Like the top bones, the axis and atlas bones at the top of our neck, they allow our head to move on top of our neck, right, independent of the neck. Mine couldn't do that before, but now I can easily wiggle my head on top of my head. And that release of tension in my neck has allowed me to grow taller in my 50s. So I'm taller now than I have ever been in my life by at least 3/4 of an inch. And that is because of the release of tension that was stored in my subconscious mind.
So is this something that has happened before with other patients, or is this kind of like a rare kind of form to experience a shift in your bones changing later in life, as well as growing taller way past the normal age when people usually do grow to their fullest potential? Is it common, or is it kind of a rare thing to happen?
I think it's pretty unusual. I do hear of it, people doing this work in their 20s, and they continue to grow in their 20s. But yes, I've not heard, I've been on over 400 podcast interviews. So I've been kind of out there. It's like, I want to know, it's like, who else does this? Who else has done this? Because I want to talk to them. So no, I think it's pretty unusual. It's a very deep level of self-awareness, but it was a progression, right? I started with my traumas. So it started with thoughts and memories, right? Mind work. The EFT, the tapping, was a physical component of it, but it started with the memories and the thoughts. And then it went to the emotions, then to the physical sensations, then into the body itself. So that's a progression of deeper and deeper self-awareness.
During this whole journey from growing up from childhood to now, what do you think's been the biggest thing you've learned about this whole experience?
Well, there's many, but one thing that if I had to go back and tell my 18-year-old, right, what to know, is that emotions are simply energy that is stuck in the body, right? You don't have to get emotionally involved with the energy, right? You can just feel the energy. I know a lot of us, like we something happens and we start asking questions. I know I've heard that you do that too, right? Why did this happen? What was it that made this happen? That, in a way, is us bypassing the actual emotion or the feeling. And it's the emotion or the feeling that's coming up to be felt. So when we ask why did it happen, we go from feeling back into the thinking mind and we bypass the sensation itself. And that's the energy. The sensation is the energy that wants to be felt. Once it's felt, it leaves the body and it doesn't come back. Right? A lot of the things we do, they kind of just bypass it and it doesn't leave the body that way. To find true, lasting inner peace, we have to let that energy release. And when it releases, this was one really fun part of my story, is that I hadn't realized that the thoughts that I kept thinking in my mind were really things that I had heard in childhood from my dad mostly, that I would take on as my own. They were self-critical, self-judgmental thoughts. I would take them on as my own and just replay them over and over in my mind. But once I had released all the memories, the negative memories around my dad, the thoughts left my mind and they never came back. I used to have thoughts, I hate myself. That was a thought that I would think a lot. And I actually tapped on that thought. I hate myself. I tapped on it for probably several hours over, I don't know, 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. And once it was totally boring to me, right? It was just 3 words. I hate myself, 3 words. It no longer had any attachment or any hook inside of me. And the thought totally disappeared.
Now, as you kind of have experienced everything, you now kind of have shared the story on podcast. What kind of led you to come on podcast to share your story? What kind of tell me a little bit about what made you get into podcasting and having this story shared with others?
Well, I had never heard anyone talk about having awareness inside their body. I'd never heard of it before. So I had these kind of new superpowers that no one was talking about. And I knew how to get there. So I wanted other people to know that they could get there too. And, I know this path works because it worked for me. It might, other people might need certain variations, but this is a path that works. And I mean, it's crazy powerful to be able to just feel into your body and release tension in there and, hear it release. I put a video out on my YouTube channel just a few weeks ago about the physical changes, like my journey update. And I've actually got a little audio in there of my neck cracking. Like I took it from 3 minutes of video down to 9 seconds of just my neck cracking over and over because it cracks so many times a day as I'm feeling into it, releasing it, and it cracks to release the tension. So it's crazy powerful. And then everyone can do it. It's healing at the deepest possible level.
When you come on podcasts, what's been the overall kind of reception you've had about from podcasts? Have you had anyone kind of reach out to you and say, yes, I've gone through the exact same thing, whether it was a podcast host or a fan of the podcast you were on had reached you personally and have said, yes, I actually have experiences the exact same thing you've gone through?
I've had some people say somewhat similar things, but no one has taken me up and done the full thing that I recommend. I haven't had many podcast hosts who say, okay, I'm going to do that. Right, I'm going to start using EFT. So yeah, I mean, it comes over well. It's a lot of work. And sometimes people are scared of bringing up their history, right? Those memories that were really scary that happen inside of us. But when you realize it's just energy stuck inside your body, right? That memory doesn't exist anywhere else, right? No other people have the same memory you do. It's just stuck in your body with energy. And all it wants to do is release. Once you really grasp hold of that, to me, it became easier. So, okay, I want to get all that energy out. So I have to go through it to release it. But once I've released it, right, just with that cat experience, with the cat injections, I felt that relief of not having that fear inside of my body anymore. And I wanted it so much. So this was a way to do it.
How are you doing in today in terms of with this kind of newfound approach in life that you've kind of been able to release all this tension? How have you been mentally and physically today?
I'm much more in the present moment, right? I can work on myself straight away, right? I'm aware of what's happening when. So I'm aware if there's something going on and I can put my focus inside very easily. Sometimes I will still use EFT, right? If the emotions are too intense. And normally that's my children. That tends to be the things that, that trigger me the most. So sometimes I can't feel inside so much and I will use tapping, I will use EFT. But in general, I can feel deep inside where the origin of that tension or emotion is, and I can focus on it and release it. So I don't have PTSD anymore. I would say I'm very peaceful and not triggered the way I used to be in the past, which is so nice. Physically, all sorts of changes have gone on. So I'm really enjoying noticing the changes and experiencing them. I mean, for example, for many, I mean, I've had an awful singing voice. I've always had, a terrible singing voice, but it's changed as I've released tension in my skull and the tissues in my face. I can sing notes that I was not able to sing before, and I can hold a note for at least twice as long as I used to be able to before. And that's a result of the release of tension in my physical body, right? Because the skull is the echo chamber for the voice. So as that tension has released, my voice has released, my jaw has released so much tension, just unbelievable amounts of tension. So I actually, in this video that I put out about my journey, I show a side by side of saying some words 4 years ago and saying the words now, and my mouth just opens more, my jaw opens more than it did because it's released all that tension.
I know a lot of people can't really see it on my instance as an audio, but there is a picture of a X-ray that you have posted, kind of like, and there's like a 10-year difference. The first one is from 2013, and it kind of shows the face kind of is more to one side, and then there was a X-ray that you did for an updated one in 2024, and you can physically see the change in the X-rays. There's a huge difference in the 2013 one and the 2024 one. Do you sometimes look at that and think, did that really happen to me? Do you kind of have moments of, oh, I used to be like that and now I look like this?
I can't see a lot of difference, honestly, in how I look. I've never liked looking at myself, but those X-rays, I am amazed. I mean, when I look at them closely, I am personally blown away at that's possible. I mean, if you look at my tooth roots, my lower front teeth they used to wobble. When the hygienist used to actually hold my teeth as she was cleaning them so that they didn't break or come out because they were so bad. And now they are just so solid, and the tooth roots have grown, and they are loose. They're not supposed to be absolutely tight. Like when you've had braces for a long time, they get solid. They're not supposed to be like that. They're supposed to move a small amount. So the connective tissue is supposed to be a little bit pliable. And mine are like that because I've released not just tension in my jaw, but tension in my tooth roots. I can put my awareness in my tooth roots and hold the tension there until the tension releases. So I've done a lot of work on those. But yes, the X-rays are totally, to me, they're totally wild because my jaw has just changed so much.
Yeah, the X-rays are very prolific when you can see the change, and especially in like the mouth region and even like in the front of the face and as well as like the nose area, you can see that it's more onto one side and it's really to the one side, and then in the second one, then the newest one, it's all centered. and it's really an amazing thing to look at. You know, do you have kind of any further bucket list goals that you would like to achieve or would like to try someday? Or do you feel like you've attempted and you've done everything that's been on your bucket list so far?
Oh, you're talking externally. Yes.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things I would like to do externally. I would like to travel the world. I'd love to give talks back and forth. I'd love to answer people's questions. This, I believe, is the journey to enlightenment. Right? I can see where the journey leads. I can see where I've been. I understand some texts, some gospel texts and things in a way that I didn't before, right? Because I'm coming from a very different viewpoint now. So I can see things and explain things in a way that I could not have done 20 years ago. So that's what I would love to do on that level. I also have my internal goals, right? I'm still working on myself. There is so much tension inside still. And I believe enlightenment is once will happens at the end of that, once there is no longer any tension left inside. And I can see that now. I know I can't see the end yet because I said it's subconscious. The tension is subconscious until it becomes conscious. So you're only shown a little window into the tension that's inside. So I don't know how much more yet will come to my awareness, but I know that's the goal, is to release all the tension. And I know I have a lot further to go yet.
What advice do you have to my audience if my audience is listening right now and they can relate to the story, what can they do today to begin releasing old tension that they've had built up for years and have that released to where they can have a better future ahead for them?
Well, I recommend starting the way I started, right? Which was using EFT and working through. The first thing I recommend is starting to become aware of your emotions because most of us aren't. So during the day, I asked myself multiple times, how am I feeling right now? Right. And answering that, right? I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling depressed, or I'm feeling angry. And just becoming aware, because when you go inside to notice what you're feeling, you're actually sensing. For a moment, you're sensing what's happening inside. And that's the first part, right? That's the first release of energy, is when you go inside and you sense. So I recommend doing that multiple times a day. Become an expert on how you feel at any moment, because you can't do anything about it until you know how you feel. Then I recommend learning something like EFT, right? EFT is so easy to learn. I have a video on my YouTube channel. There are many other videos out there. You can do it, you can learn it in just a few minutes. It's free to learn, right? The information's out there. And then just tap about that emotion until it releases and you come back to peace. Then go on with your day. And the next time you notice an emotion, do the same thing. And that gets you feeling those emotions and become an expert at that. And then if you want to, and this is what I did, was which really jump started everything, was to write down all those memories, those traumas, that conditioning, and work through one at a time. And that's when things really started to shift for me, because I was releasing those memories from childhood, which cleared my mind, right? Those thoughts started to release from my mind. And once you experience that, you really realize, what you can do, right? It's incredibly powerful. If you've never experienced a quiet mind before, and I hadn't, obviously not since early childhood, it's wild to experience and to notice the difference.
Well, and I appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I think it's really impactful and a story that needs to be told. I think you're a huge voice for a lot of people that maybe are secretly dealing with the same thing you have and have just been nervous and they've been a little hesitant to speak up. But I think you coming on numerous shows and spreading this message is going to help so many people open up for what they've been through and what they're going through to where they can open up. if people would like to get in contact with you, they would like to support you and would like to learn more about your story and would just if they have questions for you, where all are you available and can be best contacted at?
Okay, I have my website, which is my name, Ann Hince, ANNHINCE.com, and the x-rays are on there, and there's a contact form on there. And I have a free PDF download as my 5-step process to profound inner peace. So I talk through the different steps that you can do on there. I'm also pretty active on YouTube, and I have a lot of videos out there, including my Inner Peace Masterclass, which talks through these steps again, right? So you can learn them on there as well. And I'm also pretty active on Facebook.
Well, I'll put all of her links in the description box below so that if you would like to learn more about her story and would like to learn more about her and support her, all of those links will be down there for you to find and easy to find, easy to click on. Thank you to everyone for tuning in today's episode. Feel free to follow me on the socials as well. Instagram and TikTok at Lethal Venom Podcasts, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Noah's Podcasts. And as always, listen to Lethal Venom wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora. It's everywhere, so feel free to subscribe so that where you get notified of when new episodes come out. I appreciate y'all for tuning in today's episode. Hope y'all really enjoyed it. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Be safe, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Lethal Venom.